Hello, everyone. I'm Mona Magick. I would like to introduce my guest, Mark Allen Smith. Hello, Mark. How are you?
Hello, Mona. I'm great.
And
Thank you.
that's good. You know, this is the first time that you've been on my show, and I'm actually
It's
delighted
nice.
because when I first received your first book, The
hmm
Red King, I actually connected with you quite easily. In fact,
Okay.
I really saw an experience through your first book. I saw, I really saw a lot of you in it.
Yeah.
I saw the
Yes.
teaching. I felt the teaching. I felt the journey through the past, and I felt
Uh-huh.
you actually meeting. You actually working through, if in my own terms, the spirit working
Yep.
through Hagate and
Mhm.
really giving your dedication and love.
Yeah.
And it almost ended up being like a love story in a way. Well, what I mean by that, a dedication to the point of the most ultimate love and dedication. And because of that feeling that I felt, um, I then read, The Queen of Hell,
Yeah.
and now that you've got your new book out, the Scorpion, the Scorpion God.
The
I
Scorpion
am just,
God. Yep.
yeah, I'm really excited about all the work that you've got and all what you have to say.
Okay. Fantastic.
But with that, I would
hmm
like you to bring all those books together and really give a message about where this is all going, because I know this is a
Okay.
trilogy,
Yes.
and I know there's a step process. And what I don't want is want someone to think that, okay, fine, let's buy one book, when really they need to buy all three.
It's a subject that's been mentioned. If I kind of recap a little bit about the process with the books, because
Sure.
um, it's a trilogy. It's the first trilogy. Now, not that everything that I write will be trilogies. It depends. I'm writing larger and larger books because I'm taking a larger extraction from my own personal working recorded notes, and just I have an aversion to skinny books, if I'm honest, Mona. I like to be able to give people something that's going to give them a lot of work and that is, if not a thorough, comprehensive path to a certain point, which is nigh on impossible to do in one book, then certainly a stepping stone of between 2 and 4 volumes, which we've got the first stepping stone there with the Trident Trilogy.
Sure.
Queen of Hell and the Red King, as you've quite astutely picked up, or intuitively picked up, perhaps I should say, it is very much based upon my own work and my own teaching. People that are familiar with me will be familiar and aware of the fact that Hecate has always been there
Yes.
throughout my life. That is not to say that I was working ritual when I was 6 or 7 years old. I wasn't, but the presence was always there.
Sure.
And in fact, to be fair, the presence was there before I knew really what she was, and certainly before I knew who she was. And I went through the various spiritual phases of working with what I would call the witchcraft itself. And when I say the witchcraft, I mean an incorporation of spiritual power, of old witchcraft arts, and of elements of what people would class as ceremonial magic. I don't see any of the arts as particularly divided. I can't now, working with the Atlantean current, because it's kind of like the first faith is the way I see it of witchcraft. So it's the source from
Sure.
the first race of man, from the primal aeon.
Yes.
And that's the current as I get it now. And I suppose in microcosm as a child, there were all the different elements and strands were being brought together then. Um, I was kind of opened up more as an adult. I've always worked with the craft. I've always worked with it in ritual. And at about 14, I had a small group of fellow friends that I would teach spiritually, to the extent of my ability then, which was very much teaching people to explore the astral realm, teaching people mundane plane ritual through which to link to the astral realm,
Sure.
etc. That grew into a stronger practice as an adult, but it was punctuated with gaps because, as people who know me will know, that I was in the parachute regiment for 13 years. So while I maintained my practice, sometimes it had to step back into the background a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's the sort of thing that you have to hide, or at least keep a sensible distance from. There's quite a lot of spiritual people in regiments like that, believe it or not, but they tend to keep themselves to themselves for obvious reasons. Queen of Hell came about because of my desire to write a book for Hecate. I basically began having increasingly more powerful experiences with Hecate through my 20s, late 20s, and into my early 30s. It started to become consuming, obsessive, passionate, possessive, would be a good way to describe it all. When I moved here to Spain in the early 2000s, then that's when it really started to go through the gears. And I think that, well, I know that that was all part of the actual plan, because now we have the Mother Temple of Four Pillars of Fire in a certain location here in Spain. And this was not my plan. This would be Hecate's plan. My life has followed partially my own plan and majorly her plan to bring us to this stage now, really. But Queen of Hell I wanted to write because I wanted to give people... there's many books that are instructional. I wanted to give people the ability and to explain to people how to attain the direct contact with the Queen of Hell, with the goddess of witchcraft, with Lucifer's mother, with the entity that's guided and looked after and been in my life for the full duration of it thus far, and many previous glimpsed and explored, in some cases, incarnations. And there's a lot of people out there that yearn for this contact. People are ready to be opened up, and some of the material out there is okay, some of it isn't great, and some of it's just not good at all. And I thought if I could put forward something that allows people to attain direct contact with the Hecate, and also something that gives them, obviously we all know each person's experience, ritually or spiritually, is going to be an individual experience and a very personal experience, but to give people an idea of what to expect, to explain to people what I've experienced, what I've seen, things upon the astral planes, things upon the physical plane, be they etheric or even perhaps a more solid manifestation, ranging from incense manifestations, manifestations of the ether, and the manifestation of solid flesh and blood creatures, okay? Animals, the messengers, the omen bringers, and the portents of the craft. And at the same time, it was my first devotional offering to Hecate, which is where you pick the big love from me to her.
How can you miss it?
Well, I'll take that as a very big compliment. That was the intent, was to weave my own personal feeling, devotion, and to illuminate the required amount for this type of current, this kala, this art, that one needs to be able to get that kind of attention from Hecate, to open those gateways. Consequently, for the astute reader, there are a lot of parts of Queen of Hell where someone who's can just barely read between the lines can see experiences from my own life. One particular example is there's a very small paragraph on love and loss, which is the explanation of bringing a dead soul who may not be able to move on, for the purpose of that soul or for the purpose of the physically incarnate person left behind who may not be able to move on, into the body of another person. And it's a ritual of possession, of sexual magic, and of conjoining. And that really, it's something that untangles the auric threads, the ties of the heart, to the point that allows parties to rest and move forward. In the case of spiritual evolution, in the case of incarnate life, etc. That is something that was part of my own past, someone that I lost, and that ritual was formed and practiced because of that. So that there are elements in Queen of Hell that are very, very personal to me. Obviously, it's the first book, so the writing style and the method of laying out Queen of Hell, etc., was a process that has evolved through the Red King and through the Scorpion Gods. Before that, I had only written essays. Queen of Hell, like the Red King, the Scorpion God, and the other books, in fact, all books that I will put forward, each and every single book, whether they're standard or deluxe, they are opened and consecrated as gateways to their patron and to the spirits that work with that patron. The idea of Queen of Hell initially was to bring people together of all levels of experience, Mona. So, while it's not exactly a beginner's book, I often say to people, I get people who are absolute beginners, to coin the expression. So it's kind of, I can't quite get my footing in this. Where do I start? And I always advise them to buy Paul Hewson's Mastering Witchcraft.
Okay.
It's slightly eclectic, and there is no prelude to Queen of Hell unless you're looking at the essays that I've written. But the essays that I've written on my own experiences, there's no teaching in them per se. It's only experiences.
Sure.
So Mastering Witchcraft was the book that I found that was the best stepping stone for the absolute beginner, because although there are elements of Wicca, there are elements of ceremonial magic and some eclectic practices. For instance, I'm very, very devoted, as you can see, to Sephiroth's Belial, Lucifer, and Hecate. I don't step outside of that other than the entities, the gods, and the spirits that they bring to the work.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So I don't use other goddess names for Hecate. You'll get that in this initial book. But it's done the job very, very well. It's brought some of these beginners, it's given them the basic practices whereby they're able to find their footing in Queen of Hell. Anybody going from slightly above basic to intermediate into advanced practitioner will immediately upon reading it be able to find their own depth within Queen of Hell, and that was the idea. It arms the individual with all of the tools that they need to step forward. So ceremonial magicians, people that have come from perhaps advanced witchcraft or a Thelemic route, aren't going to have any problems with physical evocation, but some people might. But then there's elements within Queen of Hell that work on possession. They will expand a person's personal mediumship, and of course working with these entities will expand the person's personal power. The introduction of entities that are perhaps not contained in the mainstream medieval grimoires and things like that are going to become intrinsic to this personal path of whoever works this book. And ultimately in Queen of Hell there is the last section, which people of any level, even very advanced people, will benefit from performing, even people that have crossed the spiritual abyss, because the rituals in there are designed to launch the individual's soul across the abyss. Now, obviously we know that sort of spiritual evolution is dependent upon the person. Like the rest of the witchcraft, but especially crossing the abyss, it's not an attended course. However, there are no guarantees or handrails within this, otherwise it wouldn't be evolution. It would be something that's non-productive and non-effective. So the rituals at the end, beginning with the Legion of Night within Queen of Hell, moving through the Rite of the Phoenix, I'll leave the Toad Rite to one side for a moment, and culminating in the Rite of the Silver Star. Basically, they are the empowering with the Legion of Night and the bringing to oneself of some very ancient familiars, many of which will be older than even some very old souls working in the incarnate form at the moment. And the performance of the Phoenix Rite, in short, it catapults the soul up the back of the middle pillar at a higher velocity than any other ritual or practice or process that I've come across. Speaking from personal experience, what it does to you in your incarnate life depends on what adjustments are needed. I had some large adjustments, some large egotistical adjustments, and some large materialistic adjustments that were necessary. So my life was hit with a wrecking ball and then restructured. But in doing that, it's still singularly the greatest ritual for me that I've ever performed, because it gave me everything thereafter that was needed to bring this current in its entirety through for Hecate, Lucifer, and company. The very last ritual is designed to be performed after the process of successfully crossing the abyss, which is dependent upon the individual, and that is, it is a formation within the soul of what is known as one of the precious stones, one of the great crowns of divinity, and it's the first of those that are required upon this path, and it's actually the crown of Hecate. And it's an alignment with the soul at the very heights, Edom to some, the throne of Hecate to others, okay, that allows the soul to take that empowerment and that brilliant stellar flame that will empower the soul, it will protect the soul, and it will be a guiding light back in return for the souls that follow the path in its entirety through the Red King and through the end of the Scorpion God at the casting out of the soul of the body in the final judgment. So while I'm jumping ahead there, it's illuminating the importance of the rituals at the end of Queen of Hell. The Toad ritual, I said I would leave that to one side. The Toad ritual performed correctly, and I must stress for anyone listening that if you're using the Toad ritual in Queen of Hell, this is not, as is explained in some other books, it's very specific. If the path of sacrifice is open to you, make sure that it is without ambiguity. If it's not, wait until the creature is gifted. There is a huge path of sacrifice within the primal work, but that particular ritual, Hecate, was very specific, and I've had one person already who was given clear signs that the path of sacrifice in the Toad ritual we're talking about here was not open, performed it anyways, and they suffered a little bit for it. There were some, let's just say, severe adjustments to their life. That person is still upon the path, having realised their mistake, but it just illuminates and illustrates what can happen if you pay lip service to witch gods and the gods of the art and the craft. The Toad ritual, what else? It includes, apart from, it's a crossing of the abyss, for those that haven't done it, in a different way. The intensity of the velocity of the soul going up the middle pillar or through the different realms, it's nothing near the Phoenix. The Phoenix is aptly named for that reason. What it does, the Toad ritual, is it allows you at the beginning of the initiation of the process of crossing the abyss to form your pact with Lucifer. And anyone who's relatively familiar with the old Toad Rite will know that that involves some form of sojourn, I think is the word, or sabbatical in a graveyard. In this particular rite, some it's a horse field, some it's a place of solitude. It's very specifically the boneyard with Hecate's ritual. What that gives is an arrangement of abilities that are incorporated within the soul and within the being, and that's arranged under the watchful eye of the Queen of Hell, but the pact is direct with Lucifer, and it's made individually and after a process of testing. They are very, very important rituals within Queen of Hell that prepare the being for the path of flames. Now, this is the path that is initiated really in full at the end of the Red King. Queen of Hell is the first open gateway, Mona.
Right.
The Red King is the hub around which Queen of Hell and the Scorpion God revolve. Because although Queen of Hell is the first open gateway, and the Scorpion God is the absolute empowerment and evolution of the soul beyond the wheel of destiny of the immortal soul of man, the Red King holds the keys.
Right.
Now there are possibilities for people who are very advanced with Qlippothic work, people who have experienced all of the Qlippothic realms and done an awful lot of work in that area, will have a head start with this upon this particular path. But there are still certain rituals within the Red King that are integral and very necessary for this work, and they involve soul conjoining with Belial as the Crown Prince of the Sabbath and this world,
Sure.
And also the guardian of the Witchkin upon the path of Hecate. In performing these different rituals, especially the pathways of Belial and the ritual, the masks of the horned god Lucifer, which are a formation and a merging of the soul with each and every single one of the multitude of aspects of Lucifer. The ritual is, it's very powerful. It's the sort of ritual that, in its build-up, expect things to spark in the house, fuses to blow, electrical equipment to malfunction, and a whole variety of the odd things that can happen around the build-up to this sort of power and its attainment. And I mean, it's a ritual that is performed in one evening, but the assimilation of the power takes several months afterwards. And again, it's a transmutation, it's a transition of the soul that prepares it with these very keys. The empowerings contain keys within the mind and within the soul that then allow the individual who wishes to walk the path of flames and initiate the opening of the Atlantean gateways to transcend them. That's the Red King in a very, very brief summary. It is also my devotional offering to Lucifer. The Red King, that's as in the perfect Red King of Sulphur, the god of spiritual transmutation, the Lord of this universe, the light bearer who brings the knowledge of the gods forward. that antedates certain views of Catholic Church, etc., etc.
Of course, yeah.
He's a lot older than all of that, as we know. But that was my offering to Lucifer, and the work from the Red King. Much of it was born, and a lot of the work that follows into the Scorpion God was born of the gnosis that was achieved through the culmination and success of the rite of the Phoenix. The rite of the Silver Star, to step backwards, is really very much a crowning. So it's a powerful rite, but it's a smoother transition by far. The Phoenix, for some people that have performed it, there are a few that have done this now. It can be a slow burner, and I've had emails from and contact from people that have said, well, actually, it seems to be going okay, and then all of a sudden the emails go into this huge babble of a person who's clearly been cast into the abyss, and they've got all this knowledge coming through and all these experiences and this gnosis, and friends are leaving their life, and all the things that they don't need are being pulled away, and new things are being brought in, and initially it's quite traumatic, and then obviously the process smooths out upon successful crossing, and it fashions them and forges them to be able to walk this path, to carry out their own spiritual evolution, and of course to be able to bring forth more knowledge for the gods themselves. And that's one of the things that the Phoenix does. It alters you, it alters your soul, it creates from your soul, it forges a stronger vessel, a more powerful grail that can contain more of the blood flow of the gods, the knowledge that is brought forward. And the Phoenix, it really, really attunes the individual spiritual form to this current and grants the power with which they can carry on. For instance, the 4 great gates of fire, the first 2 of which are contained within the Red King. One of them is very stellar, that is Lucifer's. The stellar gate of Thoth is his other name, the 9 stellar gates of the gods. Very intrinsic and connected to the power and colour of Lucifer, his higher stellar flame. But then we have the gateways of the kings of Edom, which is a gate formed of an 11-pointed star with the many glyphs that must be worked through and opened. So, to put it in perspective upon, if we were to use, say, the body of a trident with 3 points in the heights, Belial, Lucifer and Hecate, ranging from, when I say the heights, this plane, the mundane plane, its surrounding spheres, to the higher thrones of Hecate and Lucifer, then into the hidden Atlantean depths, where there is a single point, where you will find Sephiroth, the great daughter of fire. Then the point in between, the shaft of the trident, would be the path between the heights and the depths.
Okay.
The gateway of the kings of Edom opens that pathway to allow the soul to descend into what is otherwise a hidden and sealed entire universal realm formed of astral planes. Without getting into too much detail, it's basically the structure of the universe before the fall of man and corruption through too much spiritual power, and it's a web-like structure. The gateway of the kings of Edom is the second great gate of fire that opens that. Bringing them all together through the Trident Trilogy, these 4 great gates of fire are very much an integral process of the final transmutation of the soul. They all came either through the Phoenix Rite or through the progressive work of the Red King, and they are carried on and integral to this work throughout the Scorpion God and beyond the Scorpion God in the gnosis that's being brought forward in these next books. So the end of the Red King, Mona, basically takes someone, whether they have vast Qlippothic experience or experience in the Nightside realms, where a lot of this knowledge is hidden, or whether they have followed the path through Queen of Hell, through the Red King. If they follow it sequentially, and I must point out to anyone listening, you can't circumvent the system. You can't short-circuit the system. I know there is a trait with some people to pick out the most powerful rituals and perform them. You can do that to a certain extent with Queen of Hell. You can do some of it with the Red King. I really don't advise doing it with the Scorpion God, because the levels that the soul will go through are levels that contain things called ring pass knots. So, best case scenario, you get a certain amount of knowledge if you don't follow the path sequentially. Now, there is a but to this, and that but is that some people who have crossed the abyss may get away with not performing the rite of the Phoenix. I would advise them to attune themselves. They're going to get more. they're going to get more knowledge, they're going to get more of this current, this colour, because they're going to be forged and fashioned to be able to accept it better. That would be my advice. Some people, as I mentioned with Nightside, the dark side of the tree of knowledge, with that sort of experience, will get away with certain rituals. They're going to look at and go, well, I've done something that is similar to this, or intuitively they will recognise an empowerment that they already have. But there are certain other rituals that are absolutely integral to this. Otherwise, they will get a volume of knowledge that will be large, particularly in the Scorpion God, but if they have not followed the path sequentially, then the volume that they will get may be only 30% of what they should be getting, no matter how large it feels. The downside to all of that is to not follow the path, because it's not solely a system of magic, it's a path of spiritual and soul evolution and elevation. Then when it's time to leave this flesh, if they haven't followed the path sequentially, then their soul may well caught upon the ring pass knot,
Right.
which leaves them in between a place of having performed some extremely powerful transformational rituals, which leaves them bound in a way. Okay, they're attached to this, they've put themselves in that position, but not having done this properly, then that power will be, that knowledge will be removed from the soul.
Right.
There is then the forked path of limbo, being held, or to incarnate again and do it all again.
You would think they would know that, though.
Well, I do get some people that write and ask and tell me that basically, normally when you tell them, although it is fairly written in black and white there, some people will go to the back of the Scorpion God and they will do things, and they will. For the people that have done that, it's not the end of the all. Simply go and perform the rituals that are necessary upon this path, and that will realign you. You won't lose what you've got. Go back and then perform the rituals where you jump to the end of the work, trying to grab as much power as possible in advance, and you will see the difference, not only in the volume of what you get, but in the type of knowledge that you get. Remember that we're dealing with very ancient gods, very ancient spirits, and if you don't walk the path correctly, not all of them are as familiar with the soul of man in the last few thousand years as perhaps Belial, Lucifer, Hecate, etc. Some of them, although they are held by the will of Lucifer, Hecate and co. to aid man, if you're not performing this properly, you're leaving yourself open. They will see you as an opportunity, and you may not realise that you've been used as an opportunity until there's too late to do anything about it, at least in this incarnation. There are also, there is the possibility of a worse fate than that. It's very simple. A little bit of respect goes a long way when working with this sort of stuff.
Of course.
So that's the Red King basically takes someone to gateways within the nether realm of the Tree of Knowledge, okay, or the Qlippothic realms. These gateways are linked within the human soul, and when opened through the rituals at the culmination of all of the work within the two books, they can actually be felt here at the back of the head, where the Quf, the sexual energy center, is very connected to the Dark Goddess, as you know. I was in intense pain when I opened the Atlantean gate for a week building up to it, and I mean really intense pain. It's different for each person. I've had a few people contact me and actually quite concerned about their actual physical brain because the pain has been intense, and they've been building up to these particular rites, and I've said, look, write to me a day after the ritual, or 2 days after when you've caught your sleep up and you've written your notes up, and it's gone. It's the build-up of power, it's the build-up of opening a gateway within the soul, the pain of which manifests in the physical form, that has been sealed since the creation of their soul, particularly if these souls were formed after the fall of spiritual corruption, when the abyss was placed within the human soul and placed before the path of evolution within the universal structure, to give us something to work towards, and hence to prevent unlimited power flowing through, and to prevent, the immediate corruption of the soul, it brings true what the old expression is: power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. The purpose of the abyss is to take something in stages and to allow someone to evolve. It's a process of evolution.
Okay, so let's just say that someone actually does everything correctly. Let's just say
Hmm.
that someone does pass over, and they're not in limbo. They don't have to go through the chaos of
Hmm.
the regeneration and pretty much get their ass kicked. Um,
Okay.
um, so how does the Atlantean aspect of the gods there um, uh, work their synergy with Hecate and Belial and Lucifer all together through the next
Okay.
incarnation? Because it's a matter of, okay, fine, you've evolved. What next?
Okay. If I explain perhaps what will happen to the soul through working the full path of flames through the Trident Trilogy, and we take a little time to explain the work within the Scorpion God, it will illuminate
Sure.
what happens next, and I'll be able to answer that more comprehensively and better rather than jump ahead. The Scorpion God, through the opening of these gateways, there are, if you imagine before the fall, as people know, there was some form of fall. There was also some form of cataclysm
Yes.
to take man back. Even those that survived had a lot of power stripped from them. The Atlantean realm being the first civilized, if you want to call it that, primal aeon, and the source of the first faith, the first witchcraft, in which the dark goddess and moreover the daughter, which would be Sephiroth. Now Sephiroth has many names. Okay, some people see in her later faces they will see various forms of the Dark Daughter, the Daughter of Fire, Faces of Babylon, etc. But the term Sephiroth comes from the very primal form of this goddess. What a lot of people don't realize is that the gods were here long before man. And if
Oh,
you
I
notice
see.
when you look in occult books and you look in spiritual things, they kind of stop at the dawn of man, which leaves the question unanswered.
Before.
Who was there in the realm of the reptiles?
Yes.
Because the planet is, and now I'm not a historian or a geologist or anything like that, but approximately 4 billion years old. Therefore, the body of Belial is approximately 4 billion years old. Throughout that evolution and the phases of evolution, there's been various necessary aspects, okay, for the planet itself to evolve, for the body itself as a part of the larger form of the universe to evolve. So without getting into all of that, the gods that stood over the reptiles, the entities which gave magical power in the form of instinct and intuition through which these beings learned to hunt, to mate, to defend themselves, they are the primal formless gods. Now they glimpse, they come, people can see them in legend, they creep through there. They are the gods that gave the first race of man unlimited power. When the universal structure was based on the true form of the bodies of Hecate and the daughter Sephiroth, it's spiderwebbed, it's circular, as opposed to the shape that you have now, formed upon the body of Lucifer. There was no abyss. There was no rising, there was only the centre and the power emanating outwards. And this is what caused the problem. So the corruption of man led to the fall. It wasn't just man that fell. The gods that were tasked, the gods that had overseen the primal aspects of the world, overseen the era of the giant reptiles, they are formless, amorphous, tentacled masses. That these are all the aspects. These are the primal gods. These are the Atlantean gods. Their knowledge is incredible. Their power is incredible. However, the fall of man resulted in not only man being and his crimes being washed from the planet, all the things that were perpetrated through this corruption, the gods themselves, the primal gods, were sealed in the Atlantean realm. The inner plane universe was not wiped away. Well, one would imagine it would be foolish to wipe away all that knowledge and power. Regardless of that, the result was that it was sealed. The supreme dark goddess, the first dragon of the void, Hecate, sealed that universe, and the universe was restructured. The soul path of man was restructured. The planets remained the same, but the soul mapping changed. This is where we get the tree of life and the tree of knowledge. This is based upon the body of Lucifer. Therefore, the abyss was opened to separate unlimited power, within reason, from the Godhead to the actual soul of man, which is the purpose of the abyss, and the abyss was opened within the soul of man. Now, at the phase we're at now in this incarnate aeon, in this current world, We are in a world of greed, of corruption. The world soul itself is out of balance.
Right.
You would only have to turn the television or the radio on, or it's everywhere.
Right.
Okay. For that and for other reasons, and to reignite the spiritual evolution of man, to awaken man to impending cataclysms in what is essentially the aeon of the light bearer, in which this knowledge is being brought back, the aeon of Lucifer, the aeon of the apocalypse, which basically is the weighing of the world soul in just under 3.5 centuries' time. Man is given the option to bring it into line. I think we all know that man won't do that on his own. The messages are being given now. Tectonic shifts, large waves, more volcanoes. We will see more of this over the next couple of centuries. If it still isn't brought into line, then man faces what could be classed as a second fall, and that will, by default, ignite the next phase of spiritual evolution. We are rather stagnated in our path and our evolution as a race at this moment in time. This is the reason for the return of what was the forbidden Atlantean current. It brings vast power. It brings, with that power comes the possibility of corruption.
Yes, right.
Vast amounts of power are dangerous. However, it is singularly the greatest power in the realm of initiating spiritual leaps. The souls that are capable of working with this can bring this knowledge forward, pass it on to others, and there is the possibility of bringing the world soul into balance. So this all ties in there. For the people that work through this, the culmination of the Scorpion God, what was separated from man in the fall, when the abyss was created, was the removal of that aspect of divinity. I think a lot of people will be familiar with the expression of the Shin, the Trident, okay? It's both a letter and an explanation of the spiritual power, the three flames of Shin within the actual soul of man. That could be equated to the three upper flames of the Trident. Yeah. Trident being three. The flame in the depths is the power held by the Queen of the Depths, Sephiran. So what you have is that many people work with Belial, or probably a lot more with Lucifer in the current aeon, and a vast amount work with the Kate. So these gods are integral to this aeon. They're integral to this mundane sphere and its surrounding inner planes in this universe. Okay, all souls have the ability to connect with them, but only through spiritual evolution is the fourth flame released, not only in communion, but within the actual soul. The work within the Scorpion God allows the soul to leap many lifetimes of normal spiritual evolution through incarnations by opening these rituals, by opening these gateways, by calling this power forth, and by being successful in devotion and in diligence to the work that they're doing. The soul can then leap lifetimes worth of evolution. The culmination of that is something called the final judgment. The final judgment is quite frightening, because it is that as the immortal soul stands since the fall of man, it is the final initiation by fire, that is the fire of the gods, that is the breath of Lucifer, of the soul of man. The actual wording, for anyone who doesn't hold the Scorpion God or hasn't seen it, is in itself quite frightening, because the ritual is opened and you have to state that you're coming of your own free will. And this is the culmination of all the work through the Trident Trilogy. And in actual fact, you bear your soul in judgment. As we know, human beings, have you ever come across people they're looking for ways to make money because they think they can convince the gods, if I get more money, then I can get this and I can do this and I can devote more time to you, and etc.
Yeah, right.
You can't pass that sort of thing off at the level of the soul. So the soul's devotion, its true intent, everything is read by Lucifer in his most primal form, and the soul is actually cast out of the flesh, out of the realm of man, out of the inner planes, and out of the Atlantean realm. It is Belial that supports the flesh during this ritual, that keeps the connection between soul and flesh is born between conscious mind, so you're aware of the trials of the soul. After that, if you are unsuccessful, then your body will become a husk, something that will be maintained and used by the spirits of the craft, because your soul was not devoted, not dedicated, because your intentions for trying to attain this power were not pure. And there are a lot of people out there, many of them not in the occult, whose sole aim is power over
Yes.
other people, for the sake of power over other people. And you get them in the occult as well. Those people will be crushed at the level of the soul. It will be cast out and it will remain out. For those that are judged correctly and positively, the fire of Lucifer, the breath of the Father, opens the gateways through which then the daughter who rules in the Atlantean realm, the daughter of fire, the daughter of conquest, the daughter of war, the great daughter of Hecate and Lucifer, brings within the soul of man the four flames of Shin. This is the merging at soul level with the four great gods of witchcraft. It's the four fires, and it elevates the soul from the path of immortal soul to God's soul incarnate. Okay? Which then takes the soul on a completely different path. And it basically is the opening of gateways that hitherto would never have been dreamt of. It's the release of the knowledge and power of legend. But as you know, the path does not stop there.
Right.
Path continues because it's a large, huge universe. When I performed that particular ritual after the current had settled, approximately 3 months after everything had settled, the volume of gnosis, the work that came through, it went from this to this. But that's not a complaint, obviously. If nothing else, I love my gods and I love this work. For those that have performed this, this is at minimum a lifetime's work, many lifetimes' work, and possibly thousands of years of soul evolution through incarnate form through this path. It's the sort of work that requires a very devoted and driven person, and sooner or later, people that only come for false power or for when I say false wealth, I'm talking about money, because obviously it's something that we need to barter, to trade, to exist in the mundane sphere, but it's not real, it's false, it's printed. They will fall from the path, they won't make it. People that come for genuine spiritual evolution will be giving everything that they need, provided they remain true in their faith to the path and to the gods of the path. The choices then are myriad. Beyond the flesh, there is the option of reifying the colours of the gods. There is the option of perhaps not coming back, but of performing something upon the inner planes. There is the option of the soul being housed in a stellar realm through which the energy is reified. There is also the option of coming back many times, kind of like if you look at what people in the New Age would refer to as ascended masters, couldn't resist, and things like that. This is where this will take people, okay? This is where this sort of power will take people, for those that wish to come back, because some people, whether they're born teachers or not, through this sort of empowerment, and I must add the guidance of the gods, and their hands are very strong in their guidance, they become teachers, and they open the gates for others. And, you know, we're at the beginning, the dawn of the Aeon of Lucifer, that began at the very beginning of 2012, you know, to put it chronologically, around February 2012.
Yeah.
And time is of the essence. So for people that want to do this sort of work, and for the souls that look back and think, you know what, actually, I'm not actually that sick. You know, I often say, I've had it. I'm not coming back after this. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. I'm going to.
Right.
I've been promised to stand at Hecate's side, and I'm going to do this. But I have, if I'm honest, it's more than a sneaking suspicion. It's a very strong intuition that choice may not, despite what's been said, be wholly mine.
No, not at all.
I'm going to get sent.
Yes.
And people must bear that in mind as well. But people, if you follow this and you attain this sort of power, there are no regrets to that, because if you come back, it will be through, although you may be told you're coming back to teach, you may be told you're going here to do this, it will be through mutual agreement, because it is a great honour to stand at the side of the gods. It is something that you will forever do. One of the scariest things I was ever told in ritual was words with Lucifer in manifestation and possession. So I had both a manifestation of him, but he had complete control of my body. And it was in reference to Hecate's work. You will never rest. You will never stop. You will forever serve her, but you will forever stand at her side, and you will forever know the love of the Dark Queen. I can't ask for more than that.
Of course you
That in itself is everything that I personally am looking for on this path. It is why I don't have a job per se. I don't have another job. I only do the books, and I do the work, and I do in person select initiations, etc. Through the Mother Temple that we've begun, placing people's names in the Book of Hecate and meeting people directly, people that are, can go forward, be empowered with this current, and then go stand on their own 2 feet with a little advice and assistance, and go and bring this work to other people and bring this current. I've always said from the start with this work, when people write to me and they begin speaking to me, my aim, although you are always welcome, provided they're not rude, you're always welcome to be in contact with me, is that sooner or later, sooner rather than later, you won't need me.
Right.
I don't need people to need me. What I want is to create the pathway for them, to illuminate the pathway for them, to show them the methods through which they can attain direct contact. When you have direct contact with Hecate,
exactly,
with a god such as Lucifer, people like me pale into insignificance.
Exactly.
That's the whole point of the teaching. That's the ethos behind it. That and the fact, and this is a challenge for many occultists, and I'm going to probably ruffle a few feathers. 99% of them aren't capable of this. That and the fact that I am looking for people, students, to go beyond. The initiation or the open gateways might be through me or through the books, but the empowerment, that won't be by my hand, that will be by the hand of the gods. And the idea is to find people stronger, people more powerful, perhaps later on in life, that can carry the current further, so that Hecate's fire, that Lucifer's light-bearing flame, Belial's blood, and Sephiran's venoms are still there, spreading throughout the inner planes in the world, throughout this aeon, to be able to bring the world soul back into balance, to be able to awaken people so that they can free their minds from false history rewriting paternal solar cults who seek to do nothing more than control them and keep them down, to give them their birthright as a soul, not as a body of flesh, from the dawn of man to unlimited power, the knowledge, the evolution. Yes, some souls will fall from the path, and unlike an incarnation where you may get the opportunity to come back, if a soul falls from the path, the fate is both horrendous and permanent. That lies in the choice of the individual mind of that soul, and its past work and future possibilities, and the decisions and the devotion that are put forth and that are made. Like anything, like I've always said, it's not an attended course, that there are no guarantees. Yes, you can get hurt, you can get a lot further than hurt, but you could also stand at the side of the gods of the craft, the gods of the art, the true gods, the creators and the destroyers of races, worlds, species, the universe itself. If people are on this path for genuine reasons, they're looking for that sort of thing. They're looking, not only, everyone's looking for their own personal power. And anyone who says they're not, it's not exactly being honest. Power is very important. Knowledge is very important, and knowledge is power. Personal power, it also gives you a level of achievement. It's what it's used for. That's also important. Not that I'm a pacifist. I'm not. I don't turn the other cheek. I never have. But we can all get so much wrapped up in the power that we've attained, and it's so easy to flex a muscle and lash out in malefica to someone that offends us, that we forget that we're actually here for to heal as well as to hurt, and to help as well as to harm. There's a balance to that, which is why I've always told people that the stellar fire, and I use that expression as opposed to light, because they kind of switch off sometimes, the occultists, when you say light. The stellar fire is as integral as the male component to the continuation of the species, is integral to the spiritual path, the solar flame, as is the pure darkness of the female power, and the pure darkness of the dark goddess. For those that work this and go through the contact with the primal gods, it's the greatest test that they will ever face, because they are just that. The primal gods that ruled over the reptilian era, that ruled over the first aeon of man, they are the blood and guts of gods. I'm not marginalising them. I'm not marginalising their intelligence, not by a long shot, nor their power. They are aware of everything that goes on this plane and its surrounding inner planes and this universe. When I say they are the blood and guts of gods, it's because they are, in their actions and in their tests, primal. They are, in their nature, primal. And because of the fall, they have been, for a long time, detached from man. Therefore, it is with the assistance of Belial that the soul descends through the empowerments of Queen of Hell, following the path and attaining the keys, and the soul empowerments of Belial and Lucifer and the Red King, and opening the gateways with the blessing of Hecate within the Scorpion God. It's not difficult to have contact with the primal entity, to call one of these black amorphous tentacled masses forward. They can just as easily take the form of a stunning woman or man if they wish, such as their ability and power. It's not difficult to evoke. The process of this path is not in evocation of these forbidden entities, if you wish, as one of the many names that they're adorned with. It's for the soul to be able to transcend and descend through a gateway that is created, a gateway of, well, it would be stones. My inner temple, they're not stones. There are 11 blocks of wood that were carved. They are opened in blood. They are opened in sexual colours, empowered in possession with the gods. When they're all placed out together, when enough of my own blood is spilled upon the centrepiece, and there are many components, including the 4 gates of fire, I realise to anyone who hasn't read the books that this may sound a little bit foreign. Those that have will identify with this, but it gives people an idea of the actual structure of creating a vortex that both exists upon the physical plane and opens the gateways of the inner planes. Therefore, you have this tangible vortex into these blocks, these stones, into which you can spill blood as the source of life and manifestation. You have a centerpiece upon which you can spill blood, and then there's a lot of it is powered by the sexual current. There's no two ways about it, be that individually with the gods alone, or you may work with a partner in God form possession. Okay, that is possible as well. But sexual energy, those colours, are what opens this gateway. They're what makes it spin at the velocity required through which you can operate bilocationally. You operate the body through the conscious mind, and your conscious mind is split. Half operates the body, the other half descends with the soul into the Atlantean realm. There you undertake the tests of the 11 Atlantean gods. And in short, because the Scorpion God is a large tome of a lot of knowledge within it, basically, they will test you beyond the level of flesh and beyond the level of your mind. You can't play with them, you can't fool them, it doesn't matter how strong you are. They will find the thing that you detest the most, and they will turn it into your greatest pleasure. They will find every weakness possible, and they will test you beyond your limit. At the end of the day, your true devotion to why you're doing this will be tested, and it will be read. For those people that follow this, if you stay true to that, and the temptations of corruption, even with the things that repel you the most, they're vast. It really has to be experienced. It's difficult to explain, even words within the book, to say that the thing that disgusts you the most will become your greatest pleasure, but that's how powerful they are when they test you. Each encounter, successfully pursued, elevates the soul. Each primal god leaves a little bit of itself, a part of its black residue and venom within the soul. In the final rituals of the book, it's Lucifer's fire. It's Belial that holds this together. Belial helps hold the sanity. It takes the mind and power of a god to assist and to protect the soul.
Take you through.
So that, yes, so you're allowed to walk the path, because the primal gods, upon first meeting, just see you as an opportunity, and you will be taken. Right. And that leaves your body then vulnerable in a zombified state. Right. You can imagine, to make mild light of it, the sport that could be had by certain spirits of the art with that. Belial makes sure that the tests are, I wouldn't say fair is not the word, but you are not taken as an opportunity unnecessarily.
Okay.
If you are doing everything that you should be, and you hold true to your faith and devotion, then he will ensure that you are not cheated of the power and the knowledge that by rights then is yours. And he has the power to ensure that, and he holds the mind, and he protects the body and the soul while you're going through this. To quote his own words, I can protect you from everything within the Atlantean realm. That which I cannot protect you from is yourself. It is the mind, the ego, and the desires of the person that would initiate their own microcosmic spiritual fall. After that, there's no redemption. These tests are very powerful, they're very serious, and they bring a spiritual evolution, as mentioned, that takes you from immortal soul to God's soul incarnate. So, for those that evolve after this, for those that beyond the flesh, then you have the ability to channel the Atlantean current as a vessel, as an earthing point within the flesh, as something beyond that upon the inner and subtle planes. And then, as I mentioned, there are a myriad of possibilities.
Oh, definitely.
Depending on what the Dark Queen has in mind for the individual. Different people, as you know, Mona, they have different strengths. Even different souls have different strengths and abilities. That's why you get these people that are tremendous healers, and you get really good people balanced within the incarnate flesh, but they just have a gift for Malefica.
Yes.
You know, everyone has, and some people have they're strong throughout the range, but generally there's something that shines through. Some people are better channels and better mediums than others. So it just depends on the traits and characteristics and power of the individual's soul.
Well, you mentioned test. You mentioned perverse, let's just say things with what a human, what our morals would actually take us through. Because when you're dealing with the gods, you're dealing with other realms, honestly, the bottom line is that they don't hold the same values. They don't hold the same. I mean, people may want a home. They could say, what the fuck? I don't care if you have a home or not. Get it. This is, take care of your spirit. Take care of this. Take care of that. You can't eat. I don't care. I don't eat food. You know what I'm saying? So the same values don't hold true. So with that, because you're talking about eons, you're talking about eternity. Life in our existence is irrelevant sometimes, or all the time, because it's a spit in the wind. It's just a grain of sand. So I do know that you have a book called The Altar of Sacrifice coming out.
I do, yes.
And that itself has a lot to do with what many people regard as, I'm not going to do it because it's immoral. I'm not going to do it because, it's, I shouldn't have to sacrifice blood or whatever the case may be. However, blood plays a huge connection and current in between the connection of one realm and the other. And I don't think that people understand exactly what true sacrifice is and what it means and going forward. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you create a ditch like they do in some places and rape a couple girls or boys and then put them in your basement. Nothing to do with that. Or cats or dogs and things like that. So can you just, without giving too much away for the book, elaborate a little bit about sacrifice and what it means and the purpose of blood and sexual sexual magic in reference to really getting that current through when you're talking about connecting to the Atlantean currents.
Definitely. Okay. What I'm not going to do is I'm not going to skirt around it with the answer that many people give, because it's absolutely nothing to do with the coming book, The Altar of Sacrifice, is when I think everybody listening will be familiar with the fact that sometimes you have to go without, okay? Be that money, sleep, time, you sacrifice your devotion, etc. Okay, that's that one out of the way, because that's the standard thing that people talk about when the subject is brought up. The Altar of Sacrifice, the title is actually very literal. It does involve the sacrifice of life. I'm going to stress now that for people that walk the primal path, this is not a necessity. It is a possibility or a choice. But the primal path is primal, and you must remember that if people want something that is sanitized for the modern civilized world, okay, fine. No, meant with the utmost respect, Wicca is down the road and first on the right. Okay, and that's not a dig at Wicca, but it's a different practice that, for the mainstream, doesn't hold this. This is the primal craft. It's the primal current. Me personally, I was given the task of bringing this back and returning it. I wasn't aware that this would be a part of the primal path. I am aware now that this will not be a part for those who do not wish to pursue it. There is as much honour and integrity in the bloodless path, and as much requirement for people to walk it as there is in the blood-soaked path. However, the blood-soaked path is as integral to this path as incarnation itself. Let's just whittle out some of the screaming protesters watching this interview at a later date. Do you eat meat? Do you kill it yourself? Okay. If you are a vegan, do you actually pray to the corn before you cut it down? Everything houses a spirit. Very many things house a soul. Not all spirits have souls, as we know. How many people actually give offering and honour to their own food? I make no excuses. I'm simply removing a few rose-tinted glasses as best as I can. If someone is repelled by this, they will be repelled by it. I'm mature enough to respect that. As regards the actual sacrifice and the work with blood, working with my own blood, it's no secret in the occult realms that it's the source of life. It's what flows through our bodies. Right. It's also that which carries the oxygen. It's also that which carries knowledge. Knowledge of the soul can be transmitted to the blood. Mm-hmm. Okay, the gateways of the brain as well as a gateway to the soul, as well as the heart. The brain and the heart, the head and the heart are integral. Blood is very, very important. It gives life, from woman's blood to the blood that pours through your veins. Therefore, anything that you wish to aid in manifestation, call a manifestation, be it a spirit that wishes blood from which to rise and build a red body of partially blood, partially etheric form that can be as solid as my hand to the eye, perhaps not so much to the touch, then blood is used for that. I use a lot of blood I use blood in every ritual now, these days. I use a lot of blood for the creation of gateways, because I can then manifest an inner plane gateway upon the physical plane. That greatly assists in transcending that gateway. But blood is also the first half of a very, very important, empowering and occult formula. There are many different names for it. Some people equate certain elements of it to honey. I wouldn't quite equate it to that. The other half of this formula is sexual fluids that are empowered in possession with the gods. I work an awful lot, in fact, again, probably every ritual, if it does not consist of sexual power and sexual magic, it certainly culminates with it. When I work alone, that would be myself working with Hecate, or Lucifer, or Belial, or Sephiroth. For the curious, I am heterosexual in the incarnation, but when I work at the level of the soul with the gods, it's not just the clothes that eventually, at the end of the ritual, may or may not come off. It isn't. I said, the skin comes off, the body comes off, the soul comes out the body. Right. I shed my flesh, and I will work as intense and passionately with Belial or Lucifer as I will with Sephiroth or Hecate, or any of the other entities that are brought forward. Sure. For me to merge with and conjoin. And I sometimes think that people in the initial stages of this work get a little bit hung up on that. All our souls are made uniquely of both male and female, yes, solar and lunar. And people that are familiar with the formula of the Baphomet and the uniting of the light and the dark to ignite, yes, the fire, then that will resonate, that will click with them very quickly. So the sexual fluid must be empowered. It transforms it. If Hecate comes in possession, then my soul is taken out, but the flesh is still enjoyed, and I still like human sex. I still like making love with a human being, but it's not. There's no comparison to communion with a god or goddess. And something which can flow through your body, through your very bone marrow, through your very veins, and stimulate that soft
Right.
tissue and that part of your body in the way that a human being could stimulate the
No
erogenous zones.
comparison.
It's different, and in that ecstasy and that empowerment and their raw power, the power to create or destroy, the level of something like Hecate or someone like or Lucifer transforms the blood, because I always use blood through possession, the witch blood ignited in possession, and it transforms the sexual fluids. When you merge the two, that is your formula. That is the opening of a gateway. That unites something that is infernal and Empyrean, Atlantean in the depths and stellar in the heights, physical and spiritual. The blood being the infernal, the Atlantean, the mundane sphere, the draconian realm, if you want to go into the lines of the earth, and in Belial in his one of his or fiery forms, okay, and the sexual power that's very, very stellar. The stellar colours, it's very, very blinding in its power when released correctly. And the merging of sexual fluids and blood conjoined opens gateways. Entities can be created with this, but the rise, the manifestation of their bodies, the empowerment of a certain end, anything like that involves this, involves the union of the soul and the flesh with the gods. They are the ultimate keys to power, the blood and the sexual fluids. A step further from that is the actual sacrifice itself. If you don't mind, I'll tell you a little bit about my own personal path. It's a small revelation at the beginning of the altar of sacrifice. I'm not born to sacrificial rites. 13 years in the parachute regiment and certain aspects of the military we won't go into. I'm not adverse, or haven't been adverse to violence in the past. I haven't been adverse to where professional soldiering can lead, if you see what I'm saying.
Sure.
That doesn't bother me. I sleep like a baby at night. But the actual sacrificial aspect, I had great difficulty with. I'm not from various parts of South America. I was not born into Palo or something like that. This was given to me by Hecate. And I will have discussions in possession. I have absolute faith, but I have a very strong and free mind, so I do question. I do question, and I will talk with Belial. I have foolishly in the past had the odd heated, I wouldn't say discussion, but encounter with
Sure.
Lucifer where I may not have agreed. I tend not to take Hecate on. If I'm honest, if Hecate says, do this, child, I do it. But I resisted this. It wasn't for me. And it kept being brought before me as an opportunity, a desire, an insistence on her part to bring back what Belial called the old ways into this so-called civilized world. And this was the path of sacrifice. And I didn't need my own mouth used in possession to explain it to me. I didn't need the gnosis delivered as a knowing and an intuition. The soul knew exactly what it entailed when it was put before me. The gift was actually thrust into my subtle body as a knife blade, and it was given more or less without request. That's Hecate's hand. And I tried to refuse the gift because it's not something that I wanted. Sure. I was then through this particular. Let me explain. Killing for killing's sake leads you nowhere, and it will lead you backwards. So there is a path and an art and as much honour and integrity as one can in the taking of life and the path of sacrifice. It's very difficult to maintain that in the actual acts. Talking about it is easy. Trying to sound holier and having more integrity and more honourable than thou, it is very easy. When it actually comes down to the actual path of sacrifice, it's not so easy, but the attempt must be maintained. I saw the power. It is vast. Upon this path of sacrifice, the knowledge and the power and the abilities, it is truly the stuff of story and of legend. That is not enough for someone like me. I like the power and the knowledge, but I'm not that driven in that area that I will do anything for it. That didn't work. In the end, the conversation was concluded with an insistence
For you,
at a very powerful level, and it was quite simple. I want you to have this, particularly, and because you don't want it. That's what makes you ideal to bring this forward. It is because you don't want this power that you are the person that I've chosen to give this to. And you will bring this path forward. And this, I think it went on for about 4 months, if I'm honest, 4 to 6 months. I work 7 days a week, 7 nights a week I work in procession with the Kate or Lucifer or Belial, or all four, with Sephiroth as well. It depends on who's giving the mainstream teaching as to who comes forward the most. So it wasn't every night, but it was once every few weeks the subject was broached again and again and again, until eventually she insisted. And so the best I could do was approach it with as much integrity as possible. And so I have worked intensively, to be perfectly honest with you all, with sacrifice. There has been sadness. There has been elation, if I'm honest, at the revelations and the gifts that were born of it. And I think the greatest understanding of the evolution of a soul. Now, I know someone out there is going to be listening to this and they're going to say, great, tell that to the particular form that's being sacrificed, Mark. But the act of sacrifice is actually, for the soul, an evolution. Some people will never be convinced of that. That's for them to decide for themselves. But within this path, within this primal current, that which is sacrificed is taken and borne by the hands of Belial into the arms of the goddess for evolution. The Atlantean era, it wasn't that long ago that Hecate, around the world, in the areas that she was worshipped, took sacrifices of more than black dogs.
Yeah.
Men as well. Okay, men that were absolutely enamoured and so enraptured in her current performed ritual castration on the nights of her power. I won't be going down that route, but it's a fact of the past. I'm not a historian, but I am aware of that. A lot of what has been brought back from the Atlantean era, when the world was different. Therefore, there will be elements within the altar of sacrifice that contain the rites and the knowledge of human sacrifice.
Sure.
It is not suggested that anyone practices them. They are brought back because of the burning of great libraries, the loss of this knowledge, and the loss of the gnosis of what actually happens to the soul, its evolution, the passing on of power from an old high priest or priestess to the apprentice, and where that soul goes and the entities that are involved. We don't have a great deal of that left. That has been brought back because it is part of our heritage and our genuine history within the first faith, within the true witchcraft, before it was fragmented, before paternal solar cults tried to stamp us out and rewrite history and blame us for all the kidnapping and cellars and things like that went on. The actual spilling of blood. Very often, the animals in sacrifice are empowered with an entity or spirit. There are rituals where you can actually, with his agreement and participation, bring Lucifer into an animal, an element of his power that empowers the blood. We are now into the realms of very primal, sacrificial, and blood-drinking work. The faith in the gods is that this blood does you certainly not no harm physically, because blood can contain all sorts of pathogens and elements. That is part of your faith, but also blood that has been empowered by a god, an entity, or a spirit will flow through your physical form, and that which goes through the physical form enters the bloodstream, and it will enter the soul form, and it's a part of faith and evolution. So the path of sacrifice is very powerful, and it's very intrinsic to certain elements. There are many strands to the primal current. That is a very powerful one, and it's, like I say, it's not a prerequisite that people then wander into this. There are people who are performing devotions. I'll give you a brief example. There is a lady in England who is creating a stellar gateway upon land of which the fountain of the gods will be built, and it will be somewhere to earth the colours of Hecate. she is aware of the path of sacrifice. She does not, nor will she ever practice it. And she is a follower of the primal craft. So that should illuminate to people that there is a difference. There are many strands in this. The altar of sacrifice is not a tome solely of about killing. What I'm doing with the altar of sacrifice is giving people the option to open gateways of power similar to the mother temple of 4 pillars of fire here in the Spanish mountains, through which, if now these are sacrificial rites, they will be able to link through the dragon lines to this temple, open a similar gateway and draw upon its power. There are awakenings of draconian entities, beings that are ancient, that are aware of man and not particularly fond of man or interested in him, that can be called forward through these rites and worked with. What they have to offer, the knowledge, the power, the ability, and the communion is regarding this planet that man himself is poisoning at a horrendous rate every day. It's vast, and it's fascinating, and it's very, very important. But again, this is something for the individual.
But honestly, you have to get real about it. The bottom line is that, it is about sacrifice. I mean, yes, you want to put that humane. Again, I mentioned that they don't hold the same values that we hold.
They take it as food. For anyone really upset about it, I would be curious as to what exactly they do eat, because everything, unless it's synthetic, and these type of people don't eat synthetic foods. Plants have spirits, rocks and stones have spirits. When we destroy that habitat, then we destroy their homes and very often their bodies. Corn, wheat, it has a spirit. Every plant, many of the people, I'm not a pharmacologist or a herbalist. There are people far, far more knowledgeable than me, but all of these beings, all of these plants, deadly nightshade, the devil's apple, they've all got really powerful witchcraft spirits. The rocks, the mountains, the spirits of the place. But it's interesting because people are so detached from forms of initiation now.
Yes, indeed.
That we have gang culture. Our initiation in this, and I always do this, all right, this civilized, it's not civilized. People are being killed by the thousands every day in the name of money, false power, greed, control over others, oil, and all of the usual stuff has gone on for the last few decades, centuries, or whatever. All of the old reasons. It's about power and control, and there's this hue and cry when someone follows a tradition of spiritual honor, a tradition, and in many traditions, Hindu and that, to not sacrifice. I don't know a great deal about the voodoo element, but I'm sure that they'd be starving their ancestors if they didn't perform in certain strands sacrificial acts. These people are devoted, and very often the people that frown upon it are in a false sense. They're in a bubble, and they're in a false world where if they don't like seeing young soldiers conscripted, and I was a professional, by the way, I was a volunteer, so it's not about that. They don't like seeing these young soldiers sent off and massacred for some bank cartel to make money. They can just change the channel and turn the television off.
Yes, right.
Because their senses are dulled to it, yet they take umbrage to genuine spiritual practice. Again, the newspaper with all of the problems of child molestation in paternal solar cults, the church, the Christian church, and all. I'm not knocking the people who go there and have genuine faith. I'm knocking the administration and the people in positions of power and trust that abuse them. The blind eye gets turned. The paper gets closed. People, it's nothing to do with me. But there's a big deal about sacrificial rites. I did have one guy write to me, and he was very. He came into perspective very quickly. He wrote to me and honestly said, "I'm not sure if I'm comfortable with this." So I explained everything that I previously explained, and I said to him, just out of curiosity, are you a vegetarian or a vegan? And he went, "No, I'm not." And he said, "Okay, I know where you're going. It's easy for me to poke you with a stick while this morning I had a burger."
Yeah.
anyone who is genuinely aware of the true path of sacrifice knows that even if it's not eaten, no part of the animal is wasted, the skin and the bones, the energy and the life force, the spirits take that as food, and they take the meat. Spirits of the place will come and feast off the meat, and the spirits of the forest that inhabit the animals of the forest will come and eat of that, and that is part of the offering of sacrifice. And even beings as universal and vast as Hecate and Lucifer, in their true forms, the forms that are connected with through the primal current, they're genuine forms. The ones that were there before we pretended we were civilized, before we tried to whitewash witchcraft and castrate it and strip it of its heritage,
Sure.
They will ask for sacrifice.
Of course.
Or they may ask for sacrifice. Spirits of the place, most definitely, and certain other entities. There is a time and a place for it. Anyone walking through Queen of Hell, the Red King, and the Scorpion God, there's actually a note in the Scorpion God. The entities through the Atlantean soul gate that's created in the Scorpion God will ask for sacrifice. To give it to them is to cause yourself a huge problem. And there is a time and a place for it. It comes afterwards. And very much a great deal of the knowledge in the fifth book, because I've written 2 books at once. It actually spans into about 3 books. I'm trying to condense the altar sacrifice into 2 volumes, and then another one will be written at a later date. But what I've written spans 3 volumes, and I want to try and squeeze it into at least 2, maybe 1. But a lot of what's been brought forward is knowledge that I was given after going through the final judgment. So the sacrifice is an offering. It's an offering of devotion, and it's an opening of gateways through which the knowledge and power of legend may be attained. For people that do have the courage to walk that path, and who will attempt it, even though it may go against the grain. My email is open. I am always available to assist people in some form or other. If you take on this work, my advice is to follow the methods of sacrifice as closely as possible. I have had people who practice sacrifice in any way, who've come to the primal craft, who've had mishaps, because it's actually, sacrifices do go wrong.
Sure.
That there is a way to do this, and if it's not done with at least some form of dignity and is the ritual honour, as opposed to just violence for violence' sake, then there will be a backlash.
Of course.
And that backlash can be life-changing.
Well, your site, primalcraft.com, are you devoting that to a personal site, or more of a publishing, or more of just updates? What is your quest for your particular site at this moment?
Primal Craft is the open doorway for people to come to this work and to find me. It's both the publishing house, but within Primal Craft and through the site and through the email address, people can find me. No one else answers the emails at Primal Craft, only myself. I answer them directly. I have been formed and cajoled and led and seduced into doing this by Hecate, and this is my life's love and my life's work. But initially, I was only putting my details and my contact out there to assist people with the transmutational rites, such as the rite of the phoenix, etc. After that, I've become aware of Hecate's greater plan, which I think was always to have Primal Craft as its own publishing house, as I get asked that a lot of times as well. You know, how come you didn't publish a book with Scarlet Imprint? How come you left Ixaxar? If I'm honest, I think if you ask the former publishers, people can only work with me for a certain amount of time. I'm difficult. I know I'm difficult. Some of the people I've worked with are difficult, and they know that too. But I think, in all fairness, all joking aside, it was always Hecate's plan that this would be this way. And she introduces new things and brings an awful lot forward, which I work as hard as I can to put out as much as I can, bearing in mind that I have brought these books out, 3 books in 3 years, but I'm aware that it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. I intend to... I won't be dying any glorious death. I will probably die with a pen in my hand, lying in bed at about 96 years old. Okay, having completed my last ritual at the temple, the Mother Temple in the Spanish Mountains, because I will continue to go there. I will never leave this place. I will never leave that temple. I will never live anywhere else. So as long as I'm able to at least drag myself up that mountain on my fingertips with my walking stick, all decrepit when I'm much older, I will still be going there, because it's the primary gateway for the Atlantean current that manifested in the world of man, and it links to the dragon lines, it links to all the lines of the earth. And so I'm actually in the process of igniting the 4 pillars of fire, which are going to be physical temples, structures, homes, outside structures. They vary, they're not all going to be the same. Of the thrones of the gods, the first one, the throne of Lucifer, has already been manifested in Poland, and that's it's called Temple of Ascending Flame, and it was the former Lodge Megan, and Asenath Mason has come here, and she's taken on the initiation, taken on the primal current, and she's got a lot of her own experience of Vast Amount and Draconian magic, and she's also undertook the initiation of the Pillars of Fire as First Prince of Fire, basically a gatekeeper to that particular aspect, that particular strand of the current, which has illuminated the role of the Mother Temple here as a place of empowerment through which people can undertake empowerment, can connect to any time that they want to, and then can go off, people that can stand on their own 2 feet, who can then go and teach others. Okay? This has become very beneficial mutually, and it's beneficial to Primal Craft, because anyone who's familiar with the Trident Trilogy will know I'm not republishing them. I'm not reprinting them. That's what Hecate said. I get asked this a lot as well, so I'll answer this one in Mona's interview now. Initially, yes, I thought I might reprint. Initially, or at least I thought, well, I knew that Hecate wanted 999 of Queen of Hell, and I thought, well, when Queen of Hell is sold out, which it's sold out, within 11 months, I think, and I will then, I'll do the Red King, and then I might introduce 1,200 books, I might introduce 1,500 books, because I don't do anything else, and the books carry enough to give me enough bread, enough gasoline. I'm not a peak oil protester, I can't be, I use a petrol engine, okay, to continue the work to exist on the mundane sphere, to bring out the next book. I charge for nothing else. Money is not the motivation or the incentive. So I make the books as nice as I can, but I was stopped in my tracks, and the instruction was given very plain and blunt. No, you will not introduce a greater number. You will do 999 maximum of every book. There may be some editions where the number in the future is less, but there will be absolutely no editions of any book where the number is more in the standard edition. And obviously the deluxe editions are very small anyways. The reason for this is that is Hecate's will. I will follow that to the letter. She wants the 999. It's a sacred number to her. It's a set number of gateways. The books are each and every single one, including every one of the standard edition, are consecrated as gateways, as talismans, as actually parts thereof the body of the gods. And that is another reason why the books will not be reprinted. Now, there is a kind of a whisper out there of some people in the publishing industry appear to be a little bit, at least on the surface, because it suits their own ends, peeved by this, because of the people that can't get hold of the books. And in some people's eyes, that is justification for them, not myself, to produce e-books and sell them in paperbacks of an unlimited volume. I won't do that. It's not Hecate's will. I won't make a paperback. I won't put that out there in an unlimited number, because it's not a consecrated gateway. These books are all genuinely consecrated. Right. I won't make money from an e-book, and I'm not... Certain people are picked for certain things. Some people are picked to manage temples, to teach people, and therefore when they put forward nice glossy paperbacks, that's not a problem. That's what they're chosen to do. But I wasn't chosen to do that. I was chosen to put these books forward. Therefore, I'm not going to sell out and chase the buck. Okay, I'm not going to chase the pound or the dollar or the euro in that way. That would be turning my back on what Hecate asked me to do. So for people that put ebooks out, that have begun doing that have done that from the start, or that were not chosen to put out forward talismanic gateways,
sure,
there is no problem. But I'm not interested in taking €10 for that. What we have done, and I say we because I've worked with the Asenath Mason, the lady who runs the first Pillar of Fire and the Temple of Ascending Flame, which I point out is conjoined to, yet separate of, the Mother Temple of the Primal Craft here. Each Pillar of Fire will have their own separate ethos and their own practices, as well as carrying the primal current and its work. What we have done is we have extracted, not the whole, I won't give the whole of the book, we don't need to, but we've extracted the elements that are absolutely integral to the path, all of the elements that are integral to the path of flame, that runs through Queen of Hell and the Red King, and they are being released through the Temple of Ascending Flame. So for the people that missed the first two books that want to follow this transmutational path, okay, it's not the same as having a book that's a gateway consecrated to its patron, but you won't lose out on the ability to attain the knowledge.
Right.
If they're willing to go forward and work through the other material of the Temple of Ascending Flame. It's not going to be for everybody, but it costs nothing. Money is not, it's not even in the equation. Therefore, the knowledge is there for free for people. Okay, that is what we have done for the people that missed out on the first two books. Yes.
That was my next question, because I was just wondering if you are to pass on. I didn't want to get you in trouble. I says, why didn't you just contest and just say, just tell her, bottom line, look, how can I teach this person? How can, someone lead on if I'm severing the knowledge? And with that, and severing the knowledge, it's almost, it's counterproductive. Because I've heard that some people have purchased your books and, stop at a certain point because they cannot handle it. So my question is, why did it get in their hands? Because obviously you figure it's meant for someone who has the book, because it is consecrated. It has been given to them. But at that point, perhaps they give it to someone else. I should hope that they just don't put it on the shelf. Oh, they did. Well, that's it when people do. But I wouldn't want knowledge to be, just put on the shelf. And because you're actually putting that stuff together and the upcoming book and helping people out, that's perfect.
There are always going to be some books that will sit on a shelf for a duration. I get asked a lot about the consecration process, and I also see a lot of untruth and rubbish, generally amongst the publishing crowd, as to what books are consecrated. And making a book a talisman, there are many different methods and views on this, but the consecration of a book, the genuine consecration of a book, there's also a lot of tomfoolery and a lot of play on words goes on, and a lot of people are putting this, or certain parties are putting this out there, and it's very much a marketing pitch, and the books aren't consecrated. When I pick a book up, I know if it's been consecrated, as I'm sure you do. Anyone with half a cent of intuition knows this, and it's very disappointing for people to, and it's happened to me. I picked up a book that I was led to believe was consecrated, that I purchased, and it just felt like a dead house brick.
Yeah.
And I use that expression in the piece that I wrote recently on my own website about the consecration of books. So I have shared the knowledge of how I consecrate the books in this blog, so in the hope that other people will pick it up and use it.
And I also too appreciate that you write everything longhand with your books, which is really different, because you get people going straight to the computer.
I can't do that. She wouldn't. That would be frowned upon.
Yeah.
It's part of the fact that when I write the books, I'm not using poetic license when I tell people every book is written in possession, every book is written from within a vortex. For those people that say, well, I don't cast a vortex, I don't use a vortex with a lot of my work, but it's essential to open a vortex between the realms with these books. I always, every day, every time I write anything of any book, I always call and conjoin the power of the 4 demon princes. So that's cross-conjoined with myself sitting at the centre. And I call the 4 gods of the Trident, Sephiroth, Belial, Lucifer and Hecate. Now, depending on who's delivering the gnosis, depends on who's flowing through Mark the most at that time. Queen of Hell was all Hecate. There are elements of Lucifer was with me quite a bit at a certain phase, basically because despite Hecate being the ruling tip of the Trident on the chapters with Lucifer in, he wants to make sure that what's being put in there has his current in there. So there is that work in Queen of Hell. The Red King, primarily Lucifer, but Hecate was always there, a strong element of Belial in certain aspects. And the Scorpion God, well, the Scorpion God was all of them, but it's primarily within the writing of the Scorpion God was Belial, and the Scorpion God exhausted me. Writing it, I was so tired and so exhausted because obviously I'm writing the book, but then you get all sorts of power that you don't normally have coming through, and there's even gnosis that comes through. That's awkward because that immediately has to be taken out and worked. Yeah, provided it's not something like human sacrifice, which is tempting for some people these days, but not possible. Okay, and not really ethical. I'm only joking, partly. Then it needs to be worked so that you're working, because I work almost all of my own material. I work as much as I can within the grounds of reason. Okay, then there are works that are channeled. Okay, so the body hopping in the Scorpion God, where it's the illumination of fire spirits and fallen Atlantean priests that have, since the fall itself, been stealing the bodies of unsuspecting magicians. It's, I suppose to someone listening to it, it sounds quite incredulous. It's quite commonplace. There are entities, some people would call it a form of jinn, that are quite adept at taking the flesh from unsuspecting magicians. Yes. Okay, Atlantean priests as well. Some of the ones that didn't quite follow their devotions all the way back to Hecate's throne. Then no, I'm not one of them. That knowledge was granted in work with one of these particular fire spirits under the watchful eye of Belial. But you do get gnosis that comes through that it's an amazing write, it's powerful write, and you think, well, this now needs to be worked before it's given to other people. So that's put out there. But the actual writing of the book, longhand, infusing and ensorceling the current through the written word, through the handwritten word into the book, it's the current that holds me up, but it's also the current that exhausts me. Therefore, when I was really, really tired towards the end of the Scorpion God, there were days in possession that I was more Belial than I was Mark, because he was keeping me up. And at the end of the day's writing, or especially, I write Monday to Friday, and then I stop. I do actually,
Do you consecrate do you consecrate your actual writings though?
Oh yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Good.
Yes, yeah. I do. Yeah. But there were times when I would withdraw from the writing. Belial would withdraw from me, and I'd just...
Yeah.
Because he's no longer holding me up. But it's interesting because, for people there are some people that are still quite wary of Belial, more so than they are of Lucifer. If he wanted to snatch me...
You couldn't do
when
anything.
When your will is at its weakest, when you're absolutely exhausted, it wouldn't be difficult for him to take over there, It doesn't make much difference the stage of my work that I'm at now, because I perform transmutational rituals where I'm actually merged at the level of the soul with Belial. So although he is everywhere and very vast, he also dwells within here, and that's a permanent fixture, which quite shocked an occultist friend of mine who said... are you actually going to go ahead with this ritual? What happens if you won't leave afterwards? And I said, well, that's the idea.
Exactly.
It's the preparation of the vessel for something greater in a few years' time. It's an ongoing process. And she was like, okay, all right. So, but, the proof of the pudding is in the eating, that I have immense trust in that.
And you should if you're going to continuously
Of course.
work with them. But on that note, I'd like to call you out on one thing. You say that you
Yes.
don't have any time, but you're well shaven, so you obviously take time out to yourself.
That was for you and everyone watching this interview. That's what that
Okay,
was.
there you go.
Okay,
You know what?
you Skyped me on Friday. Okay, this coming Friday, and you see the state of me. I will look like a 6-day growth version of the wild man of Borneo with complete with rings under my eyes.
Okay.
Friday is both my best day and my worst day because Friday is. I stop the writing, the typing, or the editing. I do sometimes work the Saturdays and the Sundays if needs be. The possession at night time, I work every night. I used to work in possession twice a day, and I can't do that. I can't do the morning phase now because the morning phase was very powerful. I used to get a lot of knowledge, a lot of gnosis. I would be deep in possession for maybe an hour, 2 hours, and then of course you've got a couple of hours of writing all the knowledge down. You can't lose it. The point of going there is to get this, and then it's impossible to write a book. It's impossible to give other people. I can continue with my own path, but I can't share the knowledge then. So I do the writing in the daytime, Monday to Friday. By Friday evening, I'm pretty much emotionally exhausted. But then I kind of bounce back because I allow myself. Friday's liberty time. Fridays go out and do what I want to do. I don't drink. I don't go. I can't be bothered with bars and things like that. But I will go and take some fresh air. I may even be an evening ritual at the temple if I'm feeling sprightly enough to go up there. Weekends and some nights during the week can be temple nights, but I don't always get up there as often as I would like. So I may sometimes be relegated to one night per week at the Mother Temple because it's a case of taking transport up there, locking transport up, and then rucksack on, and although it's not a long way, it is up the mountain it's where it should be. It's up the mountain in the dark where nobody else can find it.
I would like to dedicate this video to who you would like. Who would you like to dedicate this video to?
I would like to dedicate this video to the Trident themselves, primarily the Queen of Hell, Hecate, as the goddess of witchcraft. I would like to make a second dedication to the light bearer in the awakening age. That's awakening man, but it's also awakening the draconian aspects of the kin of Belial that live within this earth. So I would like the second dedication to go to Lucifer for all of the ascending flame, the colours and the light that's been shone upon my personal path to aid me. I would also like to make the third dedication to Belial as the third flame of the Trident. As a co-worker, as a brother, as a tremendously powerful guardian, and for my own personal family, our closest guardian and protector, there is not 1 minute of the day where his presence is not felt or known. And fourth, last but certainly not least, I would like to dedicate to Sephiran's, daughter of conquest and fire, Atlantean devil queen, sister, seducer of souls and devourer of gods, terrifying upon first encounter in her primal form in the Atlantean depths, possibly more terrifying in what she may do across the face of this earth and the world of man if the world soul is not rebalanced. See her as the Babylonian fire goddess, see her as the daughter of conquest, see her as the great daughter and the fourth flame of the Trident, integral to the witch father, mother, the brother and the sister, to the Trident of witchcraft, eternally yours.
And everyone, this has been Mark Allen Smith. Thank you, Mark. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
It's been a great interview, very informative, and I want everyone to visit your website at primalcraft.com. And of course, you run it, so that's good, so people don't second guess that it's going to be someone else answering their emails or anything like that.
It's always me.
Excellent. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.